Hello, my friends. It's Thad Riley. It's Monday. This is Going Down. It's episode 276 of the Thadcast. Thank you for joining me here today. Today, we're going to talk about writing and living a better story. So if you're a writer, this might help you. If you're not a writer, I hope this helps you too, because it's really not that much about writing. When I read the book for the first time, when I read A Million Miles in 1,000 Years, I was living a really hard story. In fact, it was probably the hardest story of my life that I'd ever been living. And it was at the time where I was living with my mom. I couldn't talk to my kids. I couldn't see my kids. My ex had done a bunch of stuff. So we're not going down that route today, but I just want to mention of the place I was in when I started reading this book. By the way, this isn't a book review. Just go get the book and read it. If you haven't read it, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Don Miller. All right, go get that book. So Don talks about this process where they're going to make a movie out of a portion of his life, out of a life experience that he had. And he starts to edit his life on camera. And as he's editing, well, with the screenwriters, as he's going through and editing these parts of his life and discussing it, and they're going through it, he's realizing at that moment in time, he's not really living a very good story. And I wonder how you and I are doing in 2020, if we feel like we're throwing our hands up in the air and living a bad story. Maybe we're living the story somebody else is forcing us to live, or we feel like they're trying to force us to live. And that may be because of elements of our world today, or it may be because of a person that you have in your life that's controlling, that's a little bit narcissistic, right? So Don gets us to step back, and that's what I want us to do right now, is to step back and take a look at our lives and ask ourselves an honest question. What does the story look like that we're living right now today? And give ourselves some honest feedback. Now, a good way to kind of dive in and look at writing, for instance, is storyboarding. And in storyboarding, you're basically encapsulating a summary of the story, but you use like a big poster. Okay. And you go through and you're like, well, this is part of my life here, and this is part of my life here, and this part here, and this part here. And they organize in this sort of way. So you got these topics, you got these ideas, and you like, what I used was sticky pads, notepads. And I just took those little Post-its and I wrote all over them different subjects, different ideas, different thoughts, about the book. But you can do this about your life. You see, this is where it comes around. You can do this about your life, everything that's going on, and line it up, and it becomes like a hill and valley. Like, this is great, top of the mountain. This sucks right here. And then you get to look at the whole thing, and you get a big synopsis of your life, and you're like, is it good? Is it bad? What do we look like? And most of us already know if it's good or bad. But that exercise is important if we want to kind of reclaim things and get things moving in a positive direction. So the question that Don Miller, is stuck with, and he keeps coming back to, is what does it look like to live a better story? And that's what we have to ask ourselves today. Now, the trick of the all answer is it's different for everybody, right? Because my story isn't your story. However, the basis of that answer, I believe, is not different for any of us. The first place where that great story begins is our relationship with God, and understanding that because of Jesus, we are more than conquerors over this world. Because of Jesus' power in us, we can have faith that he is with us and that he can move mountains. And whatever those mountains look like, we continue in the joy and optimism of God's truths in our lives. If we start with this foundational piece of who are you, as Bob Goff asks in his book, Dream Big, who are you? I am a child of God. God has conquered this world through Jesus. Now I get to live a life that manifests that looks like that has happened. And I think what has happened in our world today, there are so many who are trying to put so many controls on us, we've lost track. We're losing track of our power and what God has given us and the freedom. Galatians 5:1, that freedom that we live in today. And what is the basis of that freedom? So let's talk about why we're conquerors and why that freedom is. You see, there's nothing else that we have to do to achieve our salvation, to achieve a better salvation, except to follow, love, and know Jesus. That's like the trick of it all. And when you do that, the gospel, here's something that we'll talk about. I was criticized online, and I think I mentioned about this a little bit last week. I was criticized online for my political view and bringing the gospel into it. Listen, the gospel intercedes every section of our life. Like, it overpowers every section of our life. God is good in every section of our life. I've got a cough. I'll edit that out of the podcast, but holy cow, that sucked. All right, so video, you're stuck with it. You're stuck with a cough on video. Anyway, God, through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit living in our lives today, has engaged in everything in our life. Well, since he has all power over the world, that's our prayer today. That's our starting point today. And we ask God to help us to live a better story. And we look at who we are. And then we look at where do we want to go, and then how we're going to get there. And that's so important. That's so important. And I know that we have goals and we have dreams and we have all this, but sometimes we skip that fundamental piece. Is who are we? Who are we? And then through Jesus, we get to choose that better story because of the freedom that we have. And since we don't have to earn our way to heaven, we don't have to make our life about these competing good works and being the best and all this. We can be at peace with who we are and manifest that out and say, listen, I've got this gift of service. What does that look like? I've got this gift of writing. What does that look like? I've got this gift of singing. What does that look like? I've got this gift of gratefulness, this joy. I always have a grateful spirit about me because of what the Lord has done. How does that manifest itself? I'm a gentle-natured person. I am a peace-natured person. I can help people discover their peace and find some tranquility in hard times. What does it look like to live out that story? You know, whatever your gifts and talents might be, I might be an incredible engineer. I might be an incredible school teacher. There's a million things it could be. But what does it look like to live out that story in the freedom of Jesus in our world today? And that's why we go with confidence, because it isn't us. It's him. It's him. He lives the better story through us. But when we realize it's him, then we have a new power, a new optimism, a new strength to go forward. And we don't look at our past. We don't look at our failures. We don't dwell on what we can't do and what we haven't done. We just go forward in the faith that God is going to make something amazing happen. And that's it. And that's it. It is all because of the power of God that we are conquerors over this world today, because Jesus already conquered this world when he freed us from death. And we live that out and rejoice in the gifts that God has given us. And we go forward in that optimistic life. Now, the world wants to tell you, well, you got to fix this first. And this is so wrong. And this over here is a problem today. Not every problem was intended to be fixed by you. And that's so much of the problem. There are these people trying to suck us into their causes. You see, their cause. Their cause is never bigger than the gospel that God did, the gospel of Jesus, and what God has been doing in our world, and he's doing through you. He doesn't want you to go solve all the world's problems. He doesn't want you to bear burdens that aren't yours to bear. He wants you to live out the story that's in front of you right now in his grace and in his goodness, in peace, and in knowing that he is in control. Because the world seems out of control. It really seems out of control. But one of the reasons it seems out of control is that the people writing the stories right now are out of control. The stories that we're listening to, that we're getting force-fed, those stories are bad stories. They're not living a good story. They're out of control. See, this isn't just about writing. Like when you write story, it's important to develop and to storyboard and to plan and to organize and to get all your matter together and to do all these things when you're writing. But when you edit your life and when you edit that story, you look and ask yourself, is this the first question? Is this even a good story? And I know that we're asking ourselves that right now. I'm telling you it is. If Jesus lives in your heart, it is a good story because he is already doing things that you have no clue of. My encouragement to you today is to fiercely claim that truth and to move forward in God's grace. If you're struggling with sin, pray and ask Jesus to do something about it now and to give you the conquering freedom over everything that is happening in our world today. You can do this, my friends, because of the power of God. And you can go forward and live out that story that God is wanting you to live, that you're so hesitant on, that you're so struggling with, that you feel so, I can't do it right now. Yes, you can, because it's not about you. It's about God. So he'll do the heavy lifting, my friends. He'll do the heavy lifting. So start today. Today, right now, as you're done listening to this episode of the Thadcast, start today. Put behind you the things of old. Think about those new wineskins and filling it with new wine, right? We don't put the old wine in the new wineskins, right? New wine was meant for new wineskins. So let's move forward in God's goodness and grace today. Leave the past behind where it is and go forward, okay? Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm fired up. Happy Monday, my friends. Happy Monday. So, at the end of this episode here, just a couple of things. Remember, I am the author of this book called God is For You. And I'm beginning development in my mind a little bit about what my next book might be. But God is For You is still out there, available on Kindle, Amazon, all that good stuff. Get yourself a paperback copy today or however you like to read. And thank you for listening to episode 276 of the Thadcast. Hey, if you share this with one friend or on social media today, that's always a huge win for me. And if you could leave a review on iTunes, man, that helps me more than you know. So anyway, well, I hope you have a great day today. And until next time, my dear friends, may you be blessed.